So good morning, good day, and good evening, colleagues across the globe, and welcome to the long-awaited moment where we introduce and celebrate the launch of I Support My Friends. My name is Marie Dahl. I work for Save the Children based in Copenhagen, and I'm the head of our mental health and psychosocial support unit, and I'm also the movement-wide champion in Save the Children on MHPSS. I will be your moderator for this event. This resource kit recognizes the agency and capacity of children and adolescents, girls and boys, to develop basic skills to support their friends and ensures that they do so safely under the mentorship of trusted adults. I Support My Friends builds on the principles of psychological first aid and is aimed at equipping older children and adolescents with the skills and knowledge they need to provide peer support to their friends when in distress. Our webinar today is divided in two parts, where the first plenary part, 30 minutes, will give you an overview of the resource kit for I Support My Friends, hearing live from the co-publishing agencies and from children and facilitators in piloting countries through some pre-recorded messages. In the second conversational part, 45 minutes, there will also be a chance to connect with practitioners who have piloted the training with children from various parts of the world. We will break out in smaller groups and hear about their experiences, lessons learned, and have a conversation, sharing reflections and questions around adapting the resource to your own context. We have a number of colleagues making this event happen today. And firstly, we want to thank our colleagues from MHPSS.net who are hosting us on their platform and who are also available to support with any technical issues you might have. Just make a note in the chat box. And before we move on, brief Zoom housekeeping instructions. I only have 3 points. One is that you're welcome to rename yourself in the chat box. You click on the 3 dots after your name, and you can put the name you want to be called, and if you're affiliated with an organization or network, that as well. And as mentioned, we welcome you to put any questions you might have during the plenary part, and we have a couple of good colleagues that has been part of developing the resource material that will be monitoring the chat box and ready to answer. Lastly, for those who are new, just wanting to let you know that this session is being recorded. Now, since this is a launch webinar, we want to start by posting the link to the new resource right now in the chat box for you to get firsthand access. And this is a big moment for us. It's been a number of years. And then let me introduce the presenters for the first part. We have Leslie Snyder, the director of the MHPSS Collaborative, hosted by Save the Children in Copenhagen, a platform for research, innovation, learning, and advocacy. Leslie has developed, along with Alison Schaefer and Mark Van Ommeren, the first psychological first aid guide for field workers, launched with WHO and partners in 2011. We also have Anne Wilhoit, who is the MHPSS specialist, leading on MHPSS within the Child Protection Program Division of UNICEF New York. And she's a longtime advocate for community-based approaches to MHPSS. And then we have Alison Schaefer, a technical officer currently leading the WHO Special Initiative for Mental Health on behalf of the director of the Department of Mental Health and Substance Use. And she's currently in Iraq, but based in Jordan. And I'm pleased to have with me also Miyuki Akasaka. She's the Domestic Emergency Response Program Manager at Save the Children Japan in Tokyo. She's one of the conceptual developers and piloters of I Support My Friends, together with a colleague of mine, Anna-Sophie Dugdale, Senior CP and MHPSS Specialist, who together with Anna Lowe's Cohurst from UNICEF New York are going to be monitoring the chat box. So those who stay for the full 75 minutes will also get to hear experiences from implementers in Mongolia, Turkey, Jordan, Syria, Mongolia, and Japan. So with no further ado, Leslie, what was actually the kind of background to what we are presenting today? Over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. It's wonderful to be with you. And it's also so nice to be together with many colleagues that we've worked together on psychological first aid over this long journey, including Ananda, who I did the first training with on the WHO guidelines that were published. But the story of psychological first aid actually goes back longer than many people realize. It was a term coined in 1944, recognizing the need to support merchant marines during World War II with war stress at sea. So, and its aims were actually to mitigate short and long-term distress with awareness, stress management, and self and teen care. So it has not changed very much since 1944, but from there it has been used widely as a humane and practical response to people in distress who've been exposed to many different types of crisis events. There are many wonderful resources for PFA in the world, and I discovered those when we were developing the PFA Guide for Field Workers that Marie mentioned in 2011. That's a publication of the World Health Organization, War Trauma Foundation, and World Vision International. And this guide came out of a recommendation in the I Ask MHPSS guidelines to do PFA. And then there were just a few bullet points on how to do that. So this guidance we developed provided a framework and approach, and we feel that it demystified psychological support and well-being for many people. And it opened the door to donors and actors from many sectors and disciplines, as well as community members, to gain the skills and confidence to support someone in distress. It made mental health and well-being everybody's business. It was widely translated, adapted, and used all over the world. It's a little hard to see, but those are 3 examples at the top of some of the front covers of the guides that were adapted. And it was used with many different types of people. So community women's groups, firefighters, protection and health actors, teachers, police, defense force, and even hairdressers in Japan who requested a training because they go to cut people's hair in disaster areas. There have also been several adaptations for the Ebola crisis, Save the Children's resource, PFA for child caregivers. The IFRC developed group and telephone support resources, and its principles can be found in the basic psychosocial skills guidance for COVID responders. So we are delighted now to see the resource brought in a way that young people can directly engage with it and learn these skills with the mentorship of trusted adults, because young people are an incredible resource in helping to meet all of the emerging challenges in our world today. And I really believe in reshaping how we approach each other with humanity and kindness and care. So thank you for letting me tell this story. And I think I'm passing now over to Allison.
You can stick it.
Okay. Allison, being another developer of the early guides for PFA, we'd like to hear from you why you see that it's so important that we now have peer-to-peer PFA available for children and adolescents, and in which contexts it's suitable for use.
Thanks, Marie. And thanks for that nice introduction, Leslie. I can't agree more that it's exciting to see today's launch, because this has been something in the making for literally years. And it's wonderful that we can apply some of the PFA to support children to support each other. So I'm here to say, why is PFA for children to children peer support important? And I suppose it's because we know that both adults and children have this natural inclination, this natural desire, and a natural ability to actually help others and to be supportive of others. So in having some kind of structure about the ways that people, whether they're adults or children, can actually offer support, it helps to reduce any potential harm. And we wouldn't suggest that anyone offering support is aiming to be harmful. It helps them reduce some of that potential inadvertent harm that they might unknowingly provide others in crisis or distress. Secondly, it's important because our pilot trainings of I Support My Friends has actually shown that the children oriented in PFA felt more empowered, they felt included and recognised as having an important role to play during difficult situations and an important role to play in their peer networks. And of course, we know that's true. So the training gives them an empowering sense that that is something that they can and ought to be doing with each other. Thirdly, the more we can orient others to support children who are distressed means that there are then going to be greater opportunities for children to be reached, supported and assisted. As Leslie said, PFA can sometimes open the door or be demystifying this concept of psychosocial support. And this means that a structured approach like I Support Our Friends means that we can open the door to reach more children and support more children in difficult circumstances. And often peers will be the first place that children will go to support and seek support from each other. So this is important so that peers are actually in a position where they feel comfortable to provide that type of support. These resources are particularly special too because they have such far-reaching application potential. So these could be used in humanitarian contexts. They've particularly been piloted in protracted settings. And they could be used as part of an emergency response or an emergency recovery kind of phase. They could also be used in certain development contexts where children and families are living in difficult situations. And they could be used as part of disaster preparedness work. So there's a lot of places, a lot of phases and a lot of contexts in which this could be applied. And we're so excited to see the launch of these materials today. Thanks, Marie.
Thank you so much, Alison. Great to hear your introduction there. We will move on to actually watch a recording from the children, adolescents, and some of the facilitators that have been piloting this material over a few years in different places. And people from those same locations will be with us and are already with us for the breakout session in the second part of our webinar. So let's run the video.
Мянгасын яхах сургуулийн 6 ангид сурдаг. Хэмжээ 3 хэсэгтэй байдаг. За эхнийх нь харах. Тэгээд харах гэдэг нь болохоор нэг үер төрсэн хүүхдээ байвал тэрийг хараад тэгээд тэр хүүхдээ сонсоод тэгээд холбон. За тэгээд харахаараа тэр хүүхдээ тэгээд тэр хүүхдээсээ юм хүмийг асуун. Тэгээд холбоороо нөгөө өөрийгөө огтой аюул учруулж болохгүй өөрийгөөс тийм учраас цагдаа руу залгана.
أنا أدعم صديقي بمنظمة إنقاذ الطفل لعدد من الأطفال. التدريب عبارة عن تأسيس لعلاقة تشاركية ودعم نفسي عند الأطفال. التدريب كان مهم جدا لأنه أغلب التدريبات السابقة كانت تركز على الدعم النفسي الشخصي لكل فرد على حدة. التدريب هذا أعطى انطباع وأطلق مخيلة الأطفال أنه أنا ممكن أدعم صديقي وصديقي يدعمني حتى نأسس شبكة نفسية مستقرة وآمنة.
السلام عليكم. برنامج أنا أدعم صديقي يقدم للطفل آفاق واسعة ويمد الجسور بينه وبين الأطفال الآخرين ويقوي الثقة بالنفس.
أنا عمري 16 سنة من مخيم الزعتري. شاركت بتدريب أنا أدعم أصدقائي. كان تدريب كثير حلو واستمتعت فيه واستفدت منه. الشعور الممتع اللي بشعر بيه.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أنا المخيم الزعتري عمري 16 سنة. أنا لما أقدم مساعدة لصاحبي بحس بشعور لا يوصف وبحس حالي مالك الدنيا كلياتها.
Yardım ederken çok mutlu oluyorum çünkü yardım etmeyi seviyorum.
التدريب وبعد التدريب تعلمت مهارات جديدة وتغير طريقة تواصلي مع أصدقائي. أسمع كثير وأقلل من الحكي.
Nasıl? Benim arkadaşım değil yalnızsa onların yanına gidiyoruz, onları neşelendiriyoruz. O zor dönemi atlatıyoruz onu. Senin derdin neyse benimle konuşabilirsin. Derdini bana anlatabilirsin. Одоо өвдсөн хүүхдтэй гэж одоо энэ жишээ аваад тэгэхэд бол ялаа одоо ингээд хажуунд нь хүүхдтэй гэж урдаас нь ингэж харж ярих мэрх тэгээд янз бүрийн олон юм суулж авсан. Тэгээд эхлээд тэгээд би ялаа хүүхдэд туслах чагаа гээд ялаа өөрийгөө эрсдэлд оруулж болохгүй. Тийм учраас заавал ялаа том хүн рүү хэлж ярих хэрэгтэй гэдгийг ойлгосон. За манай найз нэг өдөр нөгөөдгөө ялаа Mahara li
مارستها خلال وبعد التدريب إني أصبحت إيجابية ومطلعة على مشاكل أصدقائي وحل مشاكلهم، وأصبحت أكثر تقربا من أصدقائي من خلال التدريب.
وبدوري كمدرب لبرنامج أنا أدعم صديقي سأقوم بمتابعة وتنفيذ أفكار أنا أدعم صديقي في مختلف التدريبات التي سأقوم بإعطائها في المستقبل، لأنها تصب في مصلحة الدعم النفسي وتثري شخصية الطفل.
ناخذ أفكار أنا أدعم صديقي ونتابع فيها بتدريبات أخرى، نطعم التدريبات الأخرى فيها وندخل مفاهيمها حتى يكون مفهوم واسع الانتشار ومفهوم يعني يستطيع الطفل أنه يقتبس منه ويكون في مجتمع سليم ومعافى نفسيا، نوصل بالنتيجة لحالة استقرار نفسي إنساني مقبولة. شكرا لكم.
So that was a really inspiring sharing from a few locations around the world. And I will hand over to Yuki Akasaka, now based in Japan, to share a little bit with us on your experience and a summary of what I Support My Friends is all about.
Thank you, Marie. I think the video shows the clear potential of I Support My Friend for children. I Support My Friends empowers children and adolescents to identify and support their peers in distress while recognize the role that they naturally play in the protective networks of their peers. Can you see the picture? The picture shows children taking part in the I Support My Friends training program in various different countries. The aim of the I Support My Friends resource kit to give children and adolescents the skills and knowledge to be able to provide peer support using the principle and strategy of psychological first aid, and it's based on the same PFA principle, look, listen, and link, as presented in the Psychological First Aid Guide for Field Worker published by the WHO, War Trauma Foundation, and World Vision International. The training is based on exercise that enable children to practice and become comfortable with using technique of such as active listening, reassurance, and understanding the need to seek external support. The I Support My Friend training is intended for children and adolescents aged 9 years and older. The training can be integrated across the sectors such as health, child protection, and education. The training participant will be children, adolescents, and focal point. The focal point have a special responsibility to check in with the children after the training on a regular basis to provide guidance and emotional support and to assist in situation while a child or adolescent needs referral. The training will be facilitated by facilitator in child or adolescent child-friendly spaces, social workers, educators, psychologists, counselors, and others who work closely with children and adolescents. The recommended number of participants for this training is between 15 to 20 per group to allow sufficient time for discussion and practice. The training can be provided at schools, learning spaces, community center, child-friendly spaces, or other facility where children and adolescents meet for recreation, learning, and social support. The training lasts 3 days and it is divided into 11 thematic sessions, with some of the sessions contain more than one activity. I Support My Friends resource kit included the following 4 components. The first one is a survey and implementation guide that presents an overview of key concepts and the theoretical foundation of I Support My Friend. It describes the ethical consideration and child safeguarding action that needs to be in place to protect children's best interest and their physical and emotional safety. It also outlines and expected skills and competency of trusted adult who mentor child and adolescents peer support. The second one is a training manual outlines step by step the training for children, including what materials are needed and example of case studies. 3, a participant's workbook contains the worksheet to be used by participants in the training. Each participant should receive his or her own workbook, which contains written information as well as space for notes and drawing. And final one is a facilitator and focal point training package, include the materials needed to build the capacity of the facilitators and focal point who will implement the training for children and adolescents. Over to Anne, I think.
Let me just say thank you so much, Miyuki, for sharing a little bit more about the content with us. This is a flyby, but the resources are available. We just wanted to give you the gist of what they entail. Now, turning to Anne Wilhoit in UNICEF, could you share with us what your hopes and future plans are for the use of this resource kit and how it can be accessed?
Yes, thank you so much. It's telling me that can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you, Anne.
Okay, good. Sorry, it gave me a little odd alert. Yes, thank you so much. So I think especially as Miyuki has detailed, and as we saw in the video, this kit has potential for just such huge reach, and I think it'll really serve as a door opener for MHPSS and children's programming. It's applicable in so many different ways, and UNICEF and partners are going to employ a launch and dissemination strategy that will include translation into multiple languages and deployment to every child-based emergency program around the world. So part of that is language. So first of all, translations are currently in process for both French and Arabic, and we are also seeking funds for a Spanish translation. We hope for many more from ourselves and also from partners. So language is one way in which we're hoping for it to have far reach. And then another way, as Miyuki also mentioned, is in the integration across sectors. And I think that will be our true strength in seeing how it fits into all different kinds of programming for children around the world. Resource 1, if you guys are all able to get the link that was put in the chat earlier, provides details on how it can be integrated across sectors. So for example, within child protection, I Support My Friends can be used to strengthen awareness among children and adolescents about MHPSS and prevent protection risks through supportive social relationships and positive coping mechanisms. Integration into disaster preparedness, and I think I saw Ali mention in the chat peace building as well is really relevant, and I think this is for the same reason, because it can equip children and adolescents with the knowledge and skills that are at the core of I Support My Friends, such as empathy, solidarity, the ability to link their social support system, which can serve as a preparedness measure so that they're well equipped to respond if there is a crisis. Education has also been mentioned, and integrating I Support My Friends into education can support safe healing and learning environments such as violence-free schools. Integration of I Support My Friends into livelihood programming can reinforce the development of positive life skills along with livelihood skills and promotes supportive and positive interactions between peers and other things like vocational training programs during internships, or even in eventually in the labor market. Integrating I Support My Friends into health programs engages children and adolescents in activities, health activities, and strengthens existing health activities by also adding I Support My Friends, which can equip children and adolescents with PFA skills in addition to other health skills. So with this type of integration and reach across sectors, across languages, we have the potential to support so many more children and adolescents around the world, and really look forward to seeing the many ways in which all of you here today along with us take this forward to use around the world across different sectors. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anne. Wonderful. So what we will now want to take a moment in the final minute before the first part ends is to give you all the chance to take action. My colleague Chaba here will be putting in the chat box the short SOMI post text that anyone can use. Just launched, I Support My Friends, equipping older children and adolescents with the skills and knowledge to support their friends. So this is our invitation to you. For anyone who are on social media, you can share the electronic resource across the world. This link takes you specifically to the UNICEF resource platform, but the resource will also be available across all our 4 publishing agencies as an open source. So I've seen a lot of chats and comments in the chat box. I hope that they've all been sufficiently addressed. We will be a little bit more conversational in the next session, but we want to wrap up this part and thank you all who joined us. And we invite those to stay. We're interested to hear a bit more about what implementation of the I Support My Friends resource kit can actually look like. So the next part of the webinar, let's just give it a 30-second breather. Thank you so much. Of well-being. So this second part, and we're so pleased to see so many having joined us, it's really about hearing a bit more from field practitioners. And let me introduce to you the 4 different breakout rooms that we're going to use today. In the breakout room that's going to focus on Japan and Mongolia, we have Anna-Sophie Dybdahl. She's a senior child protection and MHPSS advisor in Save the Children based in Denmark. And she's worked very closely with Miyuki that you've already heard from. They are the conceptual developers, in fact, of the resource kit. I see we're having some painting. Maybe Marcio, that's your kid in the background. I have no idea where that comes from, but that's exciting. That first was actually the first piloting sites in Japan and Mongolia. It was a follow-up to the recommendations from the Sendai Disaster Risk Reduction Conference in 2015. So that's where the idea came about. The context of this breakout room is basically areas that are very prone to natural disasters. There, the implementation happened in schools and boarding schools. That was the entry point, with a focus on disaster risk reduction, child protection, and child participation. In the second breakout room, which is visiting Turkey, we have colleagues from Save the Children International in Turkey, Sercan, who will be joined by Anne and Leslie that you've heard from already. So Sercan, he is working as an MHPSS coordinator in Istanbul. In Turkey, they've piloted the training and implemented since 2019. The context there is urban, and it's engaging both Syrian and other non-Syrian refugees, and implementation with consecutive translation. So that's Istanbul-based. And then in the third breakout room, we will have Save the Children Jordan colleagues, Isra and Rana, who are working in Save the Children Jordan with the situation there. And the experience there was that they piloted a shorter version of the training and an innovation workshop that went with that in 2020. That was last summer. I think it was the first activity that happened after the Za'atari refugee camp opened up after the first wave of COVID. So this setting is post-conflict displacement in the refugee camp, and it has a focus on protection, resilience, and life skills programming. The fourth and last room is visiting Syria. So I will be in that one. And I will have a colleague named Allah, who is a child protection specialist working with a local Syrian civil society organization called Huras. And they haven't implemented yet, but Allah herself, she just had the first training last week, actually. So the setting there is a conflict, and it's inside Syria. The focus is on host communities and IDPs, internally displaced people. And the entry point is through education, supporting schools for a stronger child protection system through psychosocial facilitators. So it's really interesting because we have rural context in Japan and Mongolia, urban in Istanbul, Turkey, camp setting in Jordan, and then host communities and conflict setting in Syria. Over to Ananda, I believe, to share how we break out to different rooms. All right, excellent. I hope you had some interesting conversations. I think we still had hands up in the air as we were, and someone speaking as we were closing. It is what usually happens, but we only have a little bit left of our time together today. So what we wanted to do is to hear very briefly in kind of 60, 90 seconds of feedback from each of the rooms. And if I can ask Japan and Mongolia to come in first and just share one or two key takeaways from your conversation. Either Miyuki or Anna-Sophie.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the participants in the group. There are very many good reflections on the applicability of a tool of this kind, using it as building blocks within other types of programs. We had questions around the selection of groups and also on the thematic areas that this tool can be integrated into, such as health, children on the move, and as part of different MHPSS programs. And we discussed the fact that this is not a standalone program, but should be well embedded also into a protective system, and that it requires a well-functioning support from trusted adults. The question of the opportunity for TOTs has come up. So if we have time to address that, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna-Sophie. And yes, we will do that. Can we hear from Turkey?
Hi, I'll try to do a recap for Turkey. We had a very rich discussion, and I think we could have gone on quite a bit longer. But we had some very interesting lessons about the kinds of if you have a group that's already familiar with each other, it's maybe a different starting point for I Support My Friends than if it's a new group. So in Turkey, they actually, for new groups, they provided an introduction because in some of the original trainings they did, they had already done the children and youth resilience training from Save the Children. So that was an interesting lesson. And we had a lot of questions also about adaptations for going online during COVID, including needing to put in some extra safeguards and safety, raising the age a bit to age 12, thinking about translation. And we also had a lot of questions that relate to confidentiality and child safeguarding, many of which are described and addressed in the guidance itself and in the framework. We talked about the importance of the focal points and the mentors. And I'm sure that I'm leaving something out. So I'm going to ask Serjan and Anne if you want to jump in.
Actually, it was a great, good summary. I don't have anything to add. Thank you. And if you have, it will be good.
No, I think there were just some really important and good questions, as Leslie mentioned, about safeguarding children. And I think just important to remember that a lot of these things are addressed in the tool also. And I think Serjan had some really important lessons in terms of how children were given the resources to find additional help if they needed it in the moment, and how that was just such an essential part of supporting the children throughout the process.
And maybe one tiny thing to add also, and it's not tiny, in fact, it's really about this program works well when it's embedded with connecting to other support structures in the community. So we were asked questions about, did it help with referrals to child protection? And I think this is where this program can really help in system strengthening. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Really great to hear just a snippet of what went on in the different breakout rooms. Can we go to Jordan, please?
Yes, so hi everybody. I will try to make it quick because we have a great conversation about the PFA and Jordan, and please Alison and Rana, if would like to add anything, please go ahead. So we start to talk about Jordan context and about the children who receive the training in the refugee context, and how we mobilize the children, and what the main recommendation and challenges came after the training. So we share it with the group. And then we discussed the idea of if there is still a need for PFA training for children, and definitely yes, the reason was there is many reasons, and the recommendation about the importance to extend this project and session for all the children inside the camp and outside the camp, giving some statement from the children who already received this training. Then we received some comments from our colleague in Iraq and Egypt about their experiences, about their plans for the future, and the importance of having the TOT for more technical staff under PFA, and how the expert in the country can support conducting this training and TOT, and maybe to generate more information and PFA for others. So please, Alison and Rana, if there is other, if I have more time, I will give more information, but I know that the time is very limited, so I just give some hints about what happened in the room. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, go ahead, Rana.
Oh, go, Rana.
I think it's Alison, it's not Rana.
So I just wanted to reflect that Isra, I noticed this, but Isra also provided more details in our group about how the I Support My Friends program was quite different for boys and girls. So just to acknowledge that there might be some gender differences, particularly in different cultures. And then there were also discussions about perhaps needing to adapt the trainings, like training times for different ages and different contexts. Thanks.
Good input. Thank you for sharing that as well. So we'll go to the last room, and I've asked my co-facilitator, Ala, to share a little bit what we spoke about.
Yeah, thank you, Marie. So we discussed I support my friend in a conflict setting, and how to adapt the manual to different settings as well. We discussed as well the acceptance of the community of MHPSS services, and how the community
very clearly, Ala,
or parents or children would receive the training or the service in different contexts, as well as we discussed some of the barriers of the program. Is that better now?
It's been really hard to
over to you.
But yeah, let's maybe wrap it up there in the interest of time. But just to add maybe one point is that we had a number of colleagues in different countries really bringing up the severity of the violence that they see in their contexts, and saying that that's also really a point of where peer-to-peer support comes in as an interesting piece. There was one comment also, how do we make decision makers and donors who have funding understand that this is important and not just the basic needs of food and non-food items, but also that the mental health and psychosocial support is needed. So thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed to hear a little bit from our colleagues joining us from different parts of the world. So we're just going to draw to a close and ask you to join the continued conversation. We have a few different ways that you can do that, and Jabba is going to post something in the chat box for you. So we have created, with the help of our colleagues at MHPSS.net, a group for I Support My Friends fans. I don't know. No. And there you will find the resources also, in addition to all the agencies. And there's also a potential to actually exchange and share and be part of discussion forums on that group page. You're very welcome to become a member. And then this is a membership function, but the membership is free. You just sign up. And then the other piece is that we are going to make a public resource page available also with all the launch content. So there will also be a link to that in the chat. And then we wanted to highlight that for those who might have already sneak peeked and opened any of the 4 resources, you can see that the first, second, and third is are final in their first editions. And then the 4th resource is actually a field test version. So the manual for training facilitators on focal points, that one hasn't, well, it was actually just used for the first time last week, but it hasn't been piloted for this launch. Which is why we would love for you to, you who are practitioners, to use it and share your feedback. In a bit of time, a few weeks, we will reach out and give you more information on how you can share particular feedback on actually using the material, because we have an email list now for everyone who registered to this event. And lastly, we'd like for all of you to keep an eye out for upcoming translations. As Anne mentioned, we have Arabic and French underway, and UNICEF is looking for opportunities to start on the Spanish one as well. A very last point, since I have, what do I have? 1 minute left. I think the question on training of trainers has come up from a number of different groups. That's of course often where it starts. And what we are hoping to do going forward is to collaborate in the different regions of the world across these agencies, and in particular, I would say UNICEF and Save the Children for implementation, to make training available, orientation for trainers, to kind of orient them to the material and for them to be able to then roll out in their own countries and their own agencies. So we would love for this to be really an interagency resource for anyone to pick up. So we are jointly looking for some funding to do that. And you will hear more on this as it progresses. Wow. So thank you so much to all of you. Still 150 people who joined us today. It was really our pleasure and honor to be able to share this, and we look forward to continue this conversation with you. Anne, do you have any final words to say?
No, just thank you so much, everyone, for your participation in this session today. I think it really shows the excitement and the opportunity to take this forward into the next phases of implementation with everyone. And as Marie said, we really look forward to your feedback on the 4th resource, as it's still open for feedback, and we will be in touch in the coming weeks and months. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. And just to mention that those little beanie men are now the official look, listen, and link for the children and adolescent version. And we had 520 registered today, so all of them will have a chance to see the resources, even though they didn't manage to join. The recording will be made available. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a lovely rest of the day, or evening, or night. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Maraming
Thank you.
salamat.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.